Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are coming together to share their insights and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk. I'm excited to have you here with us. If this is your first time on the podcast, welcome, or listening to us, welcome. We're excited to have you here. And I'm excited to dive in this conversation with my guest and I. This is our second time chatting. We've had a conversation before, and I'm very intrigued by him and his company, and I'm excited to bring him to all of you listening on the show. So without further ado, welcome Wayland Lum with Copperbox Leadership Advisory to the podcast. Thank you, Wayland, for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Heidi. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I'm looking forward to it too and excited to chat with you. So Wayland, can you share with us a little bit about you, Copperbox, and your role within it?
Yeah, so I am the founder and CEO of Copperbox. Copperbox is a company that I started about just over 5 years ago during COVID because I like a good challenge. But really the timing was perfect because I had come to an inflection point. I've done leadership development for a number of years, coaching leaders and top talent, working with top talent, and assessing that talent as well. And I just came to an inflection point where I really wanted to develop leaders in a different way and focus on change that was more profound and more transformational. So thinking about certainly leaders performing well in their roles and in their jobs, in the organizations that they're meant to be leading and having impact on, but also thinking about who's the bigger leader in that person, the one that's a leader in their family and in their community, in their places of worship and in their life more broadly. So I wanted to have that kind of impact and help leaders to sort of expand their definition, even their own definition of what leadership is, to really encompass all the other things and other aspects and facets of their life where they can really make an impact as a leader. So that's how Copperbox was born. And today we work with middle market private equity firms and their portfolio companies, and really focusing on helping leaders to rapidly improve so that they can have impact on the value creation plan, achieve the goals that their organizations need them to achieve. But again, going back to this place of who's the bigger leader behind this person and how do we unlock that individual and their greatness so they can have the most impact and ultimately benefit the world and benefit society in a more positive way.
And I was doing a little research, and from what you shared with me also, you have 8 principles of modern leadership. So can we dive into that a little bit? Your team works from a framework of the 8 principles of modern leadership. Can you walk us through one or two that feel especially relevant in today's fast changing work environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'll cover the ones that I think probably are most. I mean, they're all meant to be sort of timeless principles, and that modern leaders can apply, whether that be today in 2025 or whether that be sometime in the past, if we were to have the opportunity to go back in time and observe great leadership in action, or in the future as we think about the fast moving changes of where our society is going, technology advances like AI, et cetera, people living longer. And what does all this mean in terms of like what leadership is? But I think it all starts with getting grounded in core purpose as a first principle. And what do we mean by that is really, if you notice, Heidi, like probably all leaders, all great leaders that you've observed and perhaps have been inspired by, they all are driven by a deep, deep sense of purpose. And the purpose goes far beyond the making of a product or delivering of a service and generating value through revenue and having a successful company. Yes, those things are absolutely important. And, as the saying goes, no profit, no purpose. But what we see is that the greatest leaders, they really are driven by something that's much more sort of foundational and fundamental to them. And it's a purpose that comes from deep within, that is a combination of both their deeply held values, the gifts and talents that they have been born with, and also that perhaps they've fostered and developed and acquired along the way, through life's experiences and that formation, and then the desired impact that they want to have in the world. And it's that last piece where perfect purpose really gets driven and shows up every day. Helping leaders find their core purpose is absolutely foundational, and it's where we start all our work with the leaders that we work with. And then I think I will, maybe also then talk about, related to that, is really sort of like picking up the torch of leadership. So it's a metaphor that came up with and started using a number of years ago. And when we think about leadership, Heidi, it's a conscious act, right? Leadership doesn't happen by accident. You're not an accidental leader. Maybe you accidentally get into a role, but you quickly decide whether you're going to pick up that torch and what you're going to do with that leadership platform, your leadership. What are you going to do with the impact and the influence that you have on others? What are you going to do with the fact that people are watching you and perhaps looking at you for inspiration or being a role model? So that's a really conscious choice. And because it's a torch, you can either light the way, but you can also get burned, right? So, and both of those things can happen. So that really means also that the leader, there's going to be some personal discomfort, there's going to be some sacrifice, there's going to be some risk, and perhaps even some fear, right? And so it requires leaders to be courageous as well. And we don't see a lot of that in today's society, where leaders are going to take a personal stand or stick their necks out at risk of personal consequence or negative impact. That's rare in today's, but it's all the more reason why we need those types of leaders, because we live in a challenging environment, and the world as a whole has a lot of things that we're facing collectively as society, as a species, that it's going to take some courageous leadership to solve.
Yeah, you said so many good things right there, Wayland. And I hope that people are like, if you're listening, please go back and watch this again or listen to this again and take notes, because I wish I was taking notes right now. And I'm going to come back and do that. You said something about profit, leads to purpose, where I think, or profit is, purpose actually creates profit. So I think you're more likely to profit in your business and grow your business when you have purpose behind it. And I think so many people lead with the other direction, which is what you were saying, like, focus on the profit first and then worry about your purpose later. But if you have purpose and a mission and you're mission driven and service driven, then the profits will always just follow, right? Because people want to feel like serving comes first. And if you're serving, then the sales and all of the other stuff will follow. And everything, like you said in that segment, is just mind blowing to me, because I just agree with you wholeheartedly on so many things when it comes to leadership. I went through a leadership program, and everything that you shared,
awesome.
Yeah, it was like, I learned a lot. But I mean, and I love what you're doing, because so many people need those skills in order to grow a business. And also, business is based on our personal development. Right? Like, yes, we get to lead with integrity, we get to lead with purpose and be mission driven. So let's talk about some blind spots. What leadership blind spots do you commonly see in fast scaling organizations, and how do your tools or frameworks help surface them?
Yes, that's a great question. So a couple of ones that immediately come to mind, and there are many, but I think, as we think about sort of the size and the phase of growth that the companies that we work with are in, the new leadership needs are fairly predictable, much like a person grows up and goes through phases: crawling, walking, running, all the things that we've experienced as humans. companies also go through fairly predictable phases of growth. That doesn't mean that it's all the same. Of course, there's context in terms of industry, sector, competitive environment, all those things. But there are some things that are going to hold true. And so when we think about then the leaders that need to lead those companies at those specific phases of growth, one of the things that we often see is that leaders underestimate their need to grow along with their business. I think you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, Heidi. It's like you can't, you cannot keep pace with the business as a leader if you yourself are not growing. Now, if you've gone through that situation before, perhaps that growth has already occurred, so you're leveraging prior experience and prior knowledge, but the growth has occurred at some point. And then when you have leaders that are new to certain situations, it doesn't mean that they can't tackle them and be successful in addressing the challenges that those new situations bring. But you have to have a growth mindset, and you have to understand that your success is your ability to grow and be the leader that this organization needs in this moment, and then in the next, and then the next after that. So that's one of the things. A lot of the thing what I spend my time thinking about is how am I growing to make sure that I'm the leader that my company needs? How do I make sure that I'm not overtaken by the challenges and even the opportunities that I might fail to see if I'm not ready for the moment to really capitalize on those. So that's one area that we see. Another area that we see is leaders not understanding the pace of private equity portfolio companies. So coming into that environment and maybe being used to operating at a certain pace that isn't as rigorous and as intense. And so even intellectually, when they come in, they understand like, okay, it's a private equity environment. I know that we're going to be measured on much more stringently on a quarter by quarter basis. We're moving towards very specific metrics and milestones for business performance. And there's going to be an exit and hopefully at a favorable multiple. And I'm largely responsible for a good portion of that. That's all. Now that's all an intellectual sort of expression of what the reality is, but then they get onto the ground and realize the pace is much more intense than what they ever could imagine. And then you add to that the fact that if they've come from a larger corporate environment, they've maybe had a lot of resources, had team support, had much more mature functions that could help them and provide different expertise, distributed work, etc. And now they're finding themselves having to do a lot of the things that they haven't done since maybe perhaps earlier on in their career. And so they're having to be not just a player coach, but toggle between tactical and strategic and manage all of that really well as they're running hard and fast, forward. So I think it's that kind of the pace and then the balancing of tactical and strategic that and making do without some of the resources that you had before, that could be a shock. So that's something that we help leaders to one, accept and realize, but also help them to prioritize where they need to be focusing their attention and energy, and then how to scale their leadership in the right way in that type of environment.
So, Wayland, I'm intrigued because you support leaders and you lead by example in your own company yourself. And you're a leader who's helping leaders. So what are some of the things, skills that you would say, or routine that you do, that you have, or skills that you would say make a really good, effective leader?
Yeah, I think so. And, Heidi, leadership, as leader to leader, talking about leadership is difficult, and we're fallible humans. So we, as best as we might try to do, try as we might, we're gonna fail on this at certain moments in time where we're not. There's no perfect leader. We will disappoint. We will not make the right decisions at times. We will not show up as our best selves, or wish we could have a redo on the way we interacted with somebody, or how we might have, how we might have shown up energy wise in front of an individual or a group of people, let's say. But what I try to do is be open to the learning and being open to feedback. So I unafraid and actually encourage my team to provide feedback any and at all times. And that can be critical feedback, and that can be delivered publicly. So for example, like if I get feedback from one of my team members and it's like, let's say on a team call, um, I encourage them to go ahead and provide that feedback. It doesn't need to be in private. They don't need to be afraid to give that to me, thinking that or fearing that there might be repercussions, because I know that that feedback is very valuable. And as leaders, we don't often get the feedback that we need. So I appreciate when that feedback is presented to me as a gift and with the intention of helping me be better, right? And I think so that's one thing I really try to do, is just letting team members, clients, and other stakeholders know that I'm open to feedback and you can tell it to me. And I might not agree, but I'm not gonna get defensive. I'm gonna really think about and listen to what you're saying to me and understand why. And then try to use that to be better, right? So I think that's really important. I would say another aspect, we just talked about core purpose, Heidi, and living one's values. I think that's important, so, and that's not always easy. Values sometimes go up against financial pressure, or are not aligned with certain directions you could take the business, or certain decisions that you want to make. So I try to hold on to and live my values, and sometimes that means articulating them in front of others. It's kind of like my own way of kind of keeping myself accountable, right? By stating what our values are. Like, I might one of my team members, Paul, is like, Paul, we need to do the hard thing. So if it's sort of a question of kind of like taking the easier route, doing something that's going to be quicker, or actually doing the hard thing that other companies or firms aren't willing to do, but will lead to a better result for our clients. Sometimes I say it out loud, and it's almost a reminder to myself, and also accountability vis-a-vis the other person hearing me say that, and therefore can hold me accountable to that. But I think that's important too. What are your values? They're not just a nice framed poster on the wall in some office tucked away in your building. There's something that need to be lived and breathed every day and articulated fairly regularly.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it. I love what you
yeah.
just said, because basically practicing what you preach, right? And when you're bringing on team, letting them know what your values are. Like, this is the core values of the company. This is the core values of the leadership inside this company. And we want to make sure that everybody that we're bringing on is aligned. I hear that
Yeah.
from many leaders that are growing businesses and are successful, that that's a key piece to it. Also, you mentioned feedback and the open door policy around feedback, that if you want your employees or your team to be open to feedback, we must as leaders be open to feedback as well and welcome it. And you said that, and I think that's incredible, and that makes effective leadership. Because at the end of the day, we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. We're all here to learn and grow. And our team members, it doesn't matter what role they play in our organization, we can learn from them. And if we want to grow as a team, and we want to make sure that we're keeping that, building this as a community, and we're an effective leader, that we get to learn from them as well as that they learn from us. So I think that's like, for those of you listening, those are my gold nuggets that I'm pulling away from Wayland, and hopefully you're gaining more. And I just want to reiterate those, because I think that's a key piece that I'm taking away from this, Wayland. So thank you for that. I want to love to lean into AI a little bit, because AI is here. It's growing and expanding and moving very fastly, and it's not going away. So you all have been exploring the intersection of AI and human development. So how do you see AI enhancing rather than replacing the deeply human experience of leadership growth.
Yeah, and it really is a moving target, Heidi. So there's not like a definitive answer, I would say collectively that we have, nor is that answer going to be the same over time. So if we start, like, for example, we're definitely in a people business, and a lot of what I see in our industry is the belief that, AI will not touch these aspects of our job. They're not gonna touch the the things that we believe, at least at this point in time, are uniquely human, in terms of the work that we do. But I would challenge, my colleagues and even myself to really, really rethink that. And because every day AI comes out with new types of ways in which it is able to, if not fully capture what humans do, and the work that they do, is able to very closely mimic that and get some very similar results when it comes to interacting with people. And so I would say I'm focusing on what the human plus AI partnership will look at its apex, meaning that when AI becomes much more mature and is able to then now largely do a lot of the things that we assume that only humans can do when it comes to advising clients and helping them gain perspective, and perhaps even helping them achieve a breakthrough in their own thinking in terms of around their own development, and how they want to lead, for example. I think everything's on the table in terms of what this technology can potentially do versus what we as human advisors and coaches can potentially do, right? And so I think maybe the more important way to, or the question, maybe the question to ask is, what are going to be the ways in which our clients are going to have a craving or a hunger for interactions that are going to be a preference more for humans versus AI? So, like, what are those moments or the things that they would be working on where they're definitely going to want a human versus artificial intelligence to be that partner for them? And I'm not saying that the humans' output or insights would be better. I'm really just talking about the human-human connection that we all need and want and crave, because that's who we are, right? We're a social species. We do better together. And things such as, love, altruism, generosity, community, um, and things that are so inherent and fundamental to our species, those will not go away. And so when are we going to prefer that over something that might give us a superior answer, a faster answer, a more complete answer? Because it's simply because who we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about AI, and I'd like to talk about, and thank you for sharing all of that. In your space, I'm sure AI, like, it's kind of might be a little tricky, right? Because you're dealing with advisors in your space, and then the human response to it. And I think in where you all are, and I know I spoke with somebody else in the finance space, and it's a little slower developing AI because there's a trust factor there, especially when it comes to, like,
Sure.
maybe investing in making financial decisions and investing. We don't want to completely rely on AI because it may not be giving us so we still need a lot more of that human interaction. So thank you for talking about that. I'd like to talk about the human to human development. So what does human to human development mean? And why is it still essential in a world increasingly driven by technology and data?
Yeah. So human to human development, one of the things I'm focusing on right now when it comes to exactly this question is, what are the moments that define human to human connection, right? And the human to human connection is the foundation for human to human development. For example, in coaching, we spend a lot of upfront time deeply understanding the person. We spend a lot of upfront time developing the trust and the intimacy and creating really a safe space for this person to show up as their true and authentic selves. And then when they feel comfortable doing that, that's when they're able to be vulnerable, and we can then start to work on some of the scary and the tough and the intimidating and vulnerable areas of who they are and what they're trying to and what they're trying to work on and who they're trying to become. And so that upfront trust and relationship building is absolutely critical. And so that's a human to human moment, right? Other human to human moments that I think about, Heidi, are, for example, things such as a shared laugh. And now, why is that important? Well, humor is actually quite is an important tool within coaching, and actually is an important tool for a leader that has appropriate humor and can drop it at the appropriate time is one is able to relieve some tension and pressure that maybe they and their teams might be feeling because of a situation that might be causing that pressure. But also, leaders that are able to effectively use humor are also seen as more credible and in some ways more wise, because it takes a bit of wisdom to really understand when to incorporate and use humor, especially when it's used effectively, right? So a shared laugh is also something I would say is a very human to human, not just a human to human moment, but it's also a way in which to inspire, relieve tension, influence, model a positive behavior, right? These types of things. And that is all, of course, development. And so I think it's these types of, and I draw from human to human moments because they will indicate to us where to go. They'll indicate to us what is left of leadership development that is still uniquely ours and will be difficult to replicate through AI, or humans will much more prefer to have the experience with another human versus maybe having that interaction, that exchange, getting those answers from artificial intelligence, even when they intellectually know that, okay, AI can give me a more complete answer, a better answer, a faster answer. But at the end of the day, I just want to feel like somebody understands me, that I'm being heard, that I feel that trust with somebody that I've gotten to know, and that trust has been built over time. Those things are going to be hard to replace.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was chatting with AI earlier today, and they're like, making you feel good. They say, oh, you're spectacular and all the things. But at the end of the day, it's not, you don't have that cute human connection. You can't go to dinner and like touch somebody's hand across the table, or have this Zoom call that we're having right now on this podcast, and I get to see your reaction, and I get to, talk with you. And I love everything that you're sharing on this podcast. So I just want to take a moment and say, Wayland, thank you, because you and I had everything that you're sharing, you live, and I can see that in you. Everything about authenticity, about curiosity, about leaning into being open to feedback. When we first, just for you all listening, this is our second conversation, because we had a conversation before, because Wayland really wanted to learn more about the podcast and understand what the mission was before he came on and spoke. And I really appreciate you taking extra time out of your day and out of your life and out of your business in order to understand what we were looking for here, and have an open conversation, so that you can share authentically who you are in your company with our audience and with me. So I just want to say thank you for that, because for those of you listening, Wayland is giving way more of his time than you can see here. And that's what the goal of this podcast is. I shared with you, Wayland, that, the stat is like 82% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. And the goal of this podcast is to help to flip the script on that. We'd like to see 28 or 2, or none, like no businesses fail within the first 5 years, right? But if we can switch that number and decrease it a little bit at a time, I'm reaching my goal. And you're giving your time twice now with me in order to support that mission and that cause. So I just wanted to throw that out there and take a moment to acknowledge you and thank you and let our listeners know that like you've spent a little more time with me than most people do. So I just want to say thank you for that. I'd like to talk
It's a pleasure, Heidi.
yeah,
It's an absolute pleasure.
yeah. So thank you. And he's coming from Argentina now. We're like I tell you, right? You're in Argentina right now.
I am. I'm in Mendoza, Argentina. That's
Yeah.
right.
So I at the beginning I said we bring in people from all over the world, and he's been traveling. So he even took time out of his travels and his day to be with us. Can we talk a little bit about growth? You have a successful business. You're growing. Can you share with us, like visibility wise, how are you getting in front of your coaching clients? You have a specific niche. What's working for
Mhm.
you marketing wise? Like what are you doing that is like to make sure that you're staying relevant in front of them, standing out from everybody has a crowded space, right? You have other competitors.
Mhm.
How are you
Sure.
standing out from the crowd and making that happen? Maybe share with us what's working for you. And also on the flip side,
Mhm.
are there things that you have tried that haven't worked for you?
Yeah. I mean, definitely both. Any business owner would will tell you. I would say, our space, as you mentioned, it is niche, middle market private equity, and it is very much a trust-based and relationship-based business. It is a lot about building credibility over time, having people to get to know you and understand what you're about, both from a capability standpoint, the value that you bring, but also from an integrity standpoint. Are you a person that I would want to do business with? Are
Mm.
you a person that I would trust with my investments? Because that's indeed what private equity firms are doing. They're entrusting us to help them uh, grow their investments and to help them be successful. And it is with not just their money, but also the money of their investors that is on the line here. And they also, of course, they want to create something of value as well. It's not just about the returns, it's also about creating something of value or making something that has been created and making it even better. So, so all that being said, the way that we've been really building relationships with our clients and prospective clients is through a couple of different channels. First is having events that allow us the opportunity to get to know people one on one and to have more meaningful, intimate conversations. So, in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be flying from here to Chicago, and we're going to be hosting a private equity dinner on how AI is rewiring the PE industry. And that's actually the name of our talk. I'm going to be co-hosting that with Quantum Rise, who is our AI partner. We've worked with them on some internal projects for Copperbox, and they also do consulting, AI consulting for private equity and operating companies as well. And I'm excited about the conversation because we're going to get an opportunity to dive into what private equity firms are thinking about now and what they're doing in terms of AI implementation within their portfolio companies. Also, how are they using artificial intelligence for pre-deal due diligence to better understand the different types of uh, company profiles and risk profiles for those potential investments so that they can make better decisions for their portfolio. And so I think that those great conversations, Heidi, I think lend themselves, and particularly over really great food and drink, lend themselves to building relationships. And there's a reason why a lot of business and a lot of relationships are built over meals, and because it is so fundamental, kind of going back to kind of who we are, the sharing of food, breaking bread together, communion, that is so fundamental to who we are. And so when you're able to do that, a very shared, real human experience with others, there's something there, right?
Yeah.
There's something you can even say magical there, and that's why we do it. And then what comes out of that, and what develops is, we look forward to seeing, and sometimes it develops and sometimes it doesn't, but we environment to allow those things to happen. We do a lot on social media, primarily LinkedIn. We're very business focused, so we've tried other social media venues like Instagram. We've talked about doing things on TikTok, and other platforms as well. But I think at the end of the day, we had to think about where are our users, where are our clients, and if they're going to be anywhere, they're going to be in business forums. And so there's probably other opportunities later on to kind of connect with them in kind of non-business settings. But when it comes to those initial channels and points of contact, and given sort of time and space and how everybody's so busy, it made most sense for us to really kind of focus on platforms like LinkedIn and using that as a social media medium, social medium, and a channel in which to reach our audiences. Other things we do, of course, we do direct outreach via email, reaching out to you can sometimes go to fashion cold outreach is needed. It's not the most efficient, I would say, but it also gives us an opportunity to really do some research and get to know some of our prospective clients more deeply. And so not just them as individual firms, but also understanding what are the trends and the patterns we're seeing out in the industry amongst middle market private equity. I think one of the challenges that we've had, Heidi, is how do you reach out to a new private equity firm that doesn't know you? You know you can help them, but you don't have a relationship with them yet. So what are those ways in which you can really make that connection? So we try to spend some time really kind of doing research on these firms, having a way to connect with them on a commonality or an issue that they might be challenged with and dealing with, and starting a conversation around that, and then going from there. Again, not always easy. I think as a young player, and doing our competitive analysis, most of our competition and successful and more established companies within our industry are probably at least a decade in, if not 15, 20, 30 years. And so us at just over 5 years old makes me want to kind of, like a little kid, kind of put my
That's
hands up to
exciting.
show
Yeah,
you
celebrate.
just how
Yeah.
old we are. I think that's probably the challenge that we have, is like we just are not as well known in the marketplace. So that's something that we're working really hard on changing and building our reputation. But it is like, just like building a cathedral, it's there are no shortcuts. It is brick by brick. And you got to do the work day to day. But then, some days you'll step back, look up and be like, wow, I'm creating something beautiful. So that's what we're focused on. And that's what we're building.
I love that. And you said brick by brick, and that's so important when you're building a business. It's brick by brick. Don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 20, right? There's like you said, there's a lot of companies out there that have been there for a long time. You're 5 years in, you're still going, and you're persistent. And that's another piece of marketing. Persistency, people don't talk about that. They talk about like, I'm doing the LinkedIn, I'm doing the cold outreach, I'm doing all of this. But consistency and persistency is so much of the key to all of that. And being able to ebb and flow, flexibility. Like, you're going to try something. It may not work. TikTok may not be your place. It's okay. Or Instagram, right? Because your target market is the PE firms, right? Private equity firms.
Yep.
So they're on LinkedIn. And that's one thing that I want, for those of you listening, if you're, a new founder, or you're growing, or you've been here for 20 years, we all still go through ups and downs. And this is the great thing about the people that I'm bringing on here, like Wayland, is they're sharing what their ups and downs, what they're going through, what they've been through, and what they're trying, and what's working and what's not working. And it could be completely different for you, and that's okay. But one thing I want to say is, like, I'll repeat it. Don't compare it. I used to do this when I first started, and I've pivoted many times over the last 7 years. is that don't compare your chapter 20, your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 20. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You stay in your lane, be persistent, be consistent, and be willing to try new things. And you may not need to be everywhere. That's one thing I heard when I first started is you want to be everywhere, right? You want to be all across all social media, but you also want to be efficient and effective. And you want to know where your people are. So really getting in tune and doing your market research, like you mentioned, Wayland, you know your market, you know where they are, targeting, really honing in your message. That's more important than trying to be everywhere all at once. So gain success in one space and then start growing from there if you feel you need to. So thank you for that. My next question for you is, what's next? What's next for you all at Copperbox? What's your goals for the next 12 months? We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so kind of going back, and I really like that metaphor, Heidi. You know, it's like you don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 20. And by the way, it's not even the same book. It's and you're off, you know, you're authoring one book and others author, you know, their book, and that's deeply personal. And so I really like that. That really resonated with me. I would say for the next, you know, for the next year, you know, 18 months, we are really focused on continuing market penetration within the PE space, continue to build our brand, certainly. I'm really excited about partnerships that we've established this year and last year. One, I mentioned Quantum Rise, who's our AI partner. So really collaborating with them and going through a process of discovery of how do we create these AI-enabled solutions for our clients, and that ultimately will help them achieve superior measurable value through impact of the growth of their leaders that then translates into impact on their business. So that's been really super exciting for me. Another thing is also internally with AI, really thinking about the structure of my organization. I'll freely share, you know, Heidi, I had, you know, for a number of years when I started Copperbox, and a vision that I would grow this to maybe, let's say, 50 to 100 consultants. We'd be a world-class firm. I'd be doing, you know, fantastic, high quality, really interesting work. And I built an amazing culture, and then afford my team members a lot of different opportunities, whether those be growth, you know, and learning opportunities to have different differentiated experiences, maybe team offsites and planning sessions in interesting places, maybe even perhaps outside the United States, to give people exposure to different cultures and just different things that maybe they wouldn't have had a chance to do so otherwise, or maybe up to this point in their lives. That's really important to me, helping some team members make their dreams come true. Those things are all still on my radar, and they are all really important to me and things that I want to do. However, AI has changed the game in terms of how I think myself and any leader should be thinking about the structure of their company. And so and now I'm thinking about probably a much more leaner workforce, and one that has high employee human plus AI integrations. Thinking about, okay, I've got an employee base or team member base, but the team members are comprised of human team members and also AI team members or AI agents, however you want to call them. And the reason we would think about it like that is because we will get to a point where AI agents or team members, we might even stop calling them agents, we'll just call them team members, right? They will be autonomous. They will make decisions by themselves freely over time. They will have extended memory, so they'll be able to bring forward, much like we already do, context and prior work that's been done, the history of our company and organization, past clients that we worked with, all of that stuff. And so fundamentally, I realized that I needed to sort of reframe my paradigm in terms of what the organization needs to look like. So, I'm grateful in some ways that we're still a boutique consulting firm, so we don't have legacy structures that larger, more established players have that they're going to have to really grapple with. That gives us an opportunity to be really nimble and to almost be AI native in terms of how we grow from here. But that being said, and kind of last thought on this particular piece is that it also means that we don't have, let's say, necessarily like the larger ability in terms of budgets to kind of place multiple bets, like the AI bets that we have to place. We got to make sure that they're the right ones, because if we make the wrong bets, that can be really detrimental to our growth and where we want to go. So I think about these things literally every day, every day. And they really, it really has informed my decision making and my forward planning for our firm and what that could look like in the future.
Yeah. Oh, you just like, I gotta wrap this up because we're almost out of time, and I know we've gone longer than I usually talk, but thank you for this. It's been awesome. But you just said something
Sure.
which is really key, which I want to talk into real quickly, and then we'll wrap up. But I just want to, I'm not going to talk into it, but I just want to like make sure we touch on it. I remember when I started my business 7 years ago, it was how fast can you scale? How big can you make your team? And you just shared about, you know what, we get to be nimble, we get to be lean, because AI
Yeah.
is helping us create that. And I see all of these big teams. Like I had a coach who her team was about 80. And I was like, oh, I want to be that one day. And now I'm like, oh, I definitely do not want to be that. I definitely don't want to be, we don't
Mhm.
need to be that anymore, which is kind of
Yeah.
awesome and scary at the same time. Right. You can see both sides of it. It makes me a little nervous because I'm like, well, where are people going to be working? We got to figure that out.
Mhm.
But I love
Yeah.
that you brought that into it, because for those of you who are starting, you don't have to worry about scaling so fast. We have AI now that can help you in certain areas. Do we still need the human piece of it? Absolutely. People still need
Yeah.
human interaction. We still need to be able to trust, and that comes from the human interaction and the human piece of the business. But at the same time, there are pieces of it that we can utilize AI for. Real quick, one last thing is, if I could bring you back in 12 months, Wayland, and we could have this conversation again, what does success look like for you?
Oh gosh. So a year from now, if we get to sit down again, and hopefully we do, Heidi, success will look like we will have a portfolio of clients that we're really excited to be working with, that we will be working with them on a range of different issues that are really aligned with kind of where they are, like I talked about earlier, in terms of their stage of growth. Certainly, that work will be highly impactful. Those partnerships will be really strong. And then there's this other piece, kind of going back to AI, where we will see a lot of AI integrated into our work and allowing us to have superior insights that benefit our clients. I think outside of kind of the direct client work, we support a wonderful organization called Explore Austin. BIPOC youth from 6th grade to 12th grade, through outdoor leadership experiences, mentoring, and leadership development, and adventure. And I'm also excited about being able to further contribute to organizations such as that. So what's the community impact that we get to continue to have because of the success of our company? So that makes me really excited as well. And then I think lastly, I'm really excited. One of the things that I know enriches my life is I get to work with and meet amazing people. That makes me so excited, so energized and pumped, particularly when I get to meet somebody, have a great conversation, collaborate with somebody, get to hear some thought leadership and new ideas from a person. Those are like, that's the absolute best. And so I'm excited about having, as we grow our firm in a thoughtful way, having incredible team members that I get introduced to, get to know. They get to contribute to our firm, do meaningful work here. I get to build personal relationships with them. And that just makes my life more full and rich, and hopefully theirs as well. So I said, if I can do those three things, Heidi, when we sit down next year, I'm going to feel pretty good about where we've been and where we've been and where we're at.
Well, I can't wait to celebrate all those three things. So we'll definitely have to have you back. Can you, Wayland, real quick share how people can connect with you and learn more about Copperbox?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way, old-fashioned way. My email, if you want to reach out, have a conversation, I'm always happy to chat, is wayland@copperbox.co. So that's WAYLAND at copperbox.co. You can also check out our website, copperbox.co, if you want to learn more about our company. But drop me a note. I'm also frequently speaking of, LinkedIn, social media, share different thoughts and ideas, what's going on with the work that we're doing, trends that we're seeing in terms of leadership, things like AI, how leaders are living and working and conducting themselves. So lots of different topics. If you want to engage with me and our team there, we'd love to hear from you. So those are a few ways, and yeah, looking forward to connecting.
Yeah, please reach out to Wayland. We're going to have all of his links, all of his contact information inside the show notes. So feel free to go check them out there. If you are watching Wayland and I on YouTube, thank you. We're glad you're here. Please hit that subscribe button so that you are notified when we have more amazing guests like Wayland on the show today. If you know of anybody that could be supported by Wayland in Copperbox, please make sure you share this interview out there with people and companies. Also, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. Feel free to leave us a review if you can, preferably 5 stars. That helps us push this podcast out to more people so that more businesses can learn from our amazing guests like Wayland today, who's sharing their experiences and what they're doing that's working for their growth, so that we can create that flow of more businesses thriving and growing and having more successful people out there. That's the goal. And Wayland, I just want to say thank you. I did promise y'all a gift, so let me give you that real quick. If you are been trying to do things as far as your visibility and growing it, and trying marketing strategies that you feel just aren't getting you where you want to go and getting you in front of your ideal client, then go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and go grab that. Wayland, real quick, is there anything before I let you go? I know I'm running out of time, that you want to share that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on today?
No, I appreciate the conversation, Heidi. It's been a lot of fun, and it's always great to be able to talk about the work that you're passionate about, hear other people's ideas, and exchange perspectives. And like I mentioned, meeting really great, interesting people is one of the things that really gets me going, gets me energized, and I find deeply meaningful. So I count you as one of those people as well. So thanks again. Thanks for the invite, and yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a yes. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for listening to us today on the Business Growth Spotlight, and we will see you on the next episode.